All right. Welcome to episode 16 of the Wyld Farm Family Fun Show. On the show, we talk about everything farm, family, and most importantly, fun. You get some fun in the kitchen, and we also bring on some amazing guests to learn their stories in the world, what they're doing to add a value and impact, as well as dig into things across all those topics. And then, as always, Nick's always slinging up a nice recipe in the kitchen for you and your families. So we have an exciting guest tonight like no other. But before we dive into our guest tonight, Nick, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great. Ripstick Dad, Troy Rice is in the house. Everybody may want to pay attention to Troy as he gets on a ripstick to, which is a what, Troy?
It's like a maneuvering skateboard. So it's got a little bit of a swivel wheel to it. So instead of like having to push off with your one foot, you actually rotate your hips and your legs. And we got our oldest one, a ripstick a year or two ago. Now he's excellent on it. Our 5-year-old starting to, and now Nick has challenged me to do my dad run of it and see how I can get up there and go. So maybe we can show a clip of that next episode to see if I work out or not.
Absolutely. We're going to come back to that. I know you're going to send it, Troy. So that's all I know. Send it, Dad.
Always smiling.
Well, I'm doing great tonight, Troy. I'm really excited about our guest tonight. You know what I think we're going to be talking about as far as dads, even though I'm not a father, but the health of men, how men can, what the role is of men in the family and how things are changing. I'm just really super excited about our guest tonight. And please stick around for the end of the show as I haven't even told Troy this, but we're going to create a brand new segment of the Wyld Farm Family Fun Show. Just exclusively in the kitchen as an inspiration from this show and our guest tonight. So I'm really excited, and let's turn it over to our esteemed guest.
Cool. Awesome, man. I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for amping me up too. All right. So tonight's guest is Justin Batt. I'm going to bring him up here. And so Justin is a serial entrepreneur. He's also a consultant in the healthcare program, but most notably, he is an awesome advocate for fatherhood. And so he actually gave a TEDx talk on fatherhood. He owns a foundation and a program called Daddy Saturdays, and is also the author of a book called Daddy Saturdays, which we are going to share all the links to all that great information with you guys tonight. But without further ado, Justin, welcome to the show.
Troy, Nick, so good to be on with you guys. Look forward to it.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.
So I discovered a little bit of Justin's work through LinkedIn, actually, and just naturally being a father now of 4, I was attracted to all the work that Justin was doing and really wanted to dig in. And so I wanted to invite him onto the show, hear his story, and then dive into fatherhood and learn about all the great stuff that you guys are up to. So Justin, tell us about you.
Yeah. So Troy, you can probably relate, man. You got 4 kids. So my story is probably a lot of your story too. I've been married to my wife, Heather, for 15 years. We have 4 amazing children. Our daughter, Hayden Olivia, is 13. Then we have 3 boys in a row. Blaine's 11, Mason is 8, and Easton is 6. We just moved about 10 months ago from Charleston, South Carolina, to a 15-acre farm south of Nashville, Tennessee. And I would say it's a gentleman's farm at this point, although we do have 2 Highland cows coming in about 2 weeks. We have 2 Labradoodles, one Bernie Doodle, one Golden Doodle, and we've got 2 rabbits as well. So we've kind of done this black and white theme. My wife's really big on the black and white, so all of our animals are black and white. And we've named our farm True South Farm. So
okay.
It has been awesome. We've really enjoyed the move. And it has been a great change as well for Daddy Saturday and our foundation. And just the people of Nashville have been so embracing and welcoming. And we're looking forward to big things to come.
I love it. And so, you and I have talked just really briefly about this, but because I own an organization that supports farms, one thing I find curious in the space is I seem to see the farm as being a good principles provider for the family. And so we even brought on a guest, I think it was a week ago or so. She's a beef farmer, and she talked about basically living the life of teaching her kids through the farm and all the principles, the way of life, God, and everything. And so is that kind of like what you're going to be building in with the farm with your kids too? Is that type of principle journey?
Yeah, there's several reasons why we did the move to the farm, right? A big part of it was we just wanted to disrupt the pace and the rhythm of our family. And I think when you live in a farm, just having the land and kind of being out on your own, it changes the pace and the rhythm of the family. And so part of that was we wanted to be extremely family centric. And when people come over, they come over for a day or they come stay. And I think we've had people in our home every weekend since we've been here in 10 months. So it's been a great place to welcome people into. And part of our day to day is just that, right? There's a lot of work to be done on the farm. The work never ends. And we've done a lot of demo and remodeling. We've had a trail barn that we've turned into eventually be an Airbnb. We've done a ton of work around the farm, and the kids have learned a lot of lessons already. And I'm trying to ingrain things in them like work ethic and discipline, and you work until the job is done. And it's also fun to see my kids' personalities come out as we go through the projects, because I've got two of my boys in particular that they'll take any excuse to, oh, I need to go back to the house and get water, or I need to go get this tool, and then an hour later they come back.
Yes.
For my other son, Mason, my middle son, I mean, he will work from the time we start until the time that we end, and he's just disciplined that way. So it's great to help ingrain those things in your kids. Obviously, responsibility of taking care of animals, the patience that comes with producing crops, right, and harvest. And again, I mean, there's so many lessons that come out of it. And we're just getting started, so I have a lot to learn about being a farmer and being a farmer dad, if you will. But yes, I can already see the fruit of being on a farm and what that means for our kids.
Yes, amazing. And yes, kids are all of them are different, right? I mean, you learn those things through schooling and things in the house, but when you get out there in the field and ask them to pick up a shovel and do a few things, there's always a couple of outcries. So that's awesome. And before the show ends too, I want to just extend the offer to help you any way I can with our organization or anything that we can do or I can do personally. So let's back up just a little bit. And so I know you do all this excellent work around fatherhood. And so does that stem from somewhere from when you were a kid, or can you walk us through the journey of how you discovered that this is the area that you truly want to dig into?
Yeah, so a lot of people ask me that question because as I talk about my story, they expect me to share that I grew up fatherless or didn't have a dad or was abused. And that actually wasn't the case at all. I had a good dad. He was very involved, coached all my sports, played catch every day after school, and was super involved with me. But what I found was that when I came out of the home, I was very results driven. A lot of the love and affirmation I received from my father was through results, especially on the athletic field. So I found myself striving for that in corporate success, in career success, in title and status, etc. And it was early on in my role of being a dad. In fact, right when our first child, our daughter, was born, my wife left teaching and went in to open a bridal store in Charlotte, North Carolina. So she was an entrepreneur. She's wearing all the hats, working all day on Saturday, busiest day in retail. And I had our daughter from the time she was born all day long on Saturdays. And then we added the 3 boys to the mix every 2 years. So I found myself that corporate dad striving to attain status and career, and had moved up quite a bit in corporate America, and was all alone by myself with my kids all day on Saturday while my wife worked in her store supporting her. And I just had a wake up call one Saturday, and God just kind of said to me, Justin, you have a choice. You can treat your kids as a blessing or a burden. They can be an inconvenience or an assignment. The choice is yours. I was a good dad. I was spending 8 to 10 hours with my kids every single Saturday all day, but I wasn't making the most of that time together. I'd wake up and kind of loaf my way into the day and just expect it to happen. And so that wake up call caused me to be intentional. I began planning our Saturdays in advance. I'd go on YouTube and I'd figure out things to research. I call it R&D, to rip off and deploy with my kids on those Saturdays to create these epic adventures. And we started doing that using what we had around the house or what was in our community. And literally everything changed overnight, Troy and Nick. I mean, literally my kids, our relationship just started to blossom. The communication was there. The time that I could carve out one-on-one with each of them during the day as we planned things. My wife and I and our relationship was also growing. And I recognized very quickly that I had found a secret sauce, and that the intentionality not just on Saturdays, but every day with your kids, and approaching parenting with an intentional mindset really is a game changer. And then 3 years ago, I was asked to give a TEDx on fatherlessness. And my kids had named it Daddy Saturday at that point. And so we had put up videos on YouTube, and I was thinking about my TEDx. And I was like, I really knew a lot about the father in the home, but I didn't know a lot about the other epidemic that was out there and the lack of a dad in the home. When I found out there was 24 million kids in America that don't have a biological father living in the home, and then there's millions more who have a dad like I was at some points, physically present but emotionally absent, just ripped my heart out. And I said, I have to do something about this. Like, this is my calling. I've got a solution that can help the dads that are in the home, and I want to help the kids that don't have a father figure. So we wrote the book, we launched the platform, and at that point, God kind of told me, he said, Justin, I want you to focus on the dad that's sitting in front of you. If you take care of that dad and that kid, I will take this thing around the world. That's my job, not yours. And I'm so honored to say and humbled to say we have Daddy Saturday Kenya established. We've served 3,000 kids over in Kenya, Africa, and we've got a thriving program over there, and he's taking it around the world. And we're just growing and expanding and helping dads and kids everywhere.
Amazing, man. I love it. I got a little bit of the chills there just listening to that story, especially like not just the intentional piece of what you do, but then the discovery of what else is out there of fathers that aren't even there, right? And so there truly is a double dynamic there, which is, are you there? Like, are you present even though you're standing in the home, or are you not there at all? And both of them sounds like require some good effort and some intentionality to make it worthwhile, not only to you as a father, but to your kids. So that's incredible. Let's go. You mentioned Kenya. Is there like foundations that you're setting within communities within the United States too? Like, if Nick and I wanted to help out, could we start a program in Michigan per se or Minnesota? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So thank you for asking.
Yeah.
In fact, yes. And so our plan is that my ultimate goal would be to have a Daddy Saturday champion or Daddy Saturday club in every single city around the country, right? And that's just a dad or a group of dads that are stepping up and saying, hey, let's all get together on Saturday. Let's go out to the park. Let's plan an event, right? And Daddy Saturday, our organization will equip them with the ideas, the activities, even resource some of those areas as well if need be. And then we see dads in community engaging together with their kids. And then the big piece is someone like Nick, who doesn't have kids, can still come out and participate and get coached up on how to be a dad one day, but also interact with those kids that don't maybe have a father figure, right? So we all know single moms. We all have opportunities to serve kids that don't have a dad. And so also the big part of that is you really accomplish both sides of that coin, because you get dads being engaged with each other, being intentional with their kids, but also bringing kids that don't have a dad into that environment, so they get that exposure to a father figure. So yes, the website's being redone right now. It should be launched next week. So the updated website will have an area where you can go in, sign up. We'll have a map of the U.S. We'll be updating it, dropping pins in every area that a dad steps up to be that community champion for Daddy Saturday. And that's one way that we're looking to expand in the U.S. Internationally, it'd be the same thing. A lot more infrastructure needs to go in place internationally, but we want to do this all around the world.
That's incredible. Yeah, because I know, like even myself, like I try to be creative sometimes, but it's always helpful to have something to lean on, some type of things to do that are different. And I love the concept of bringing it all together within your community, right? Because there's other dads out there that are like you. There are other dads out there that want to do more. And this kind of gives them the space. It's almost like, and I know Nick's big into like CrossFit, but it's like building a community around fatherhood, right? And so there's a lot to accountability. There's a lot to the joys of sharing in those passions, whether it's the challenges you had for the day or all the exciting things that you have with your kids. All of those things matter. And I could imagine those being some rich conversations.
Yeah. And here's the big thing that I've learned. And, each of you have very unique talents and giftings. I'm an okay cook. I cook out of necessity. I enjoy cooking, but I'm nowhere at Nick's level, right? So if I wanted to teach my kids something about cooking, I could try and do it myself, but I would not be able to provide them the level and the experience and the depth that someone like Nick could. If I want to teach my kids about farming, right, or about managing the land, like Troy, you have more knowledge in 2 fingers than I have in my entire body. And so you could teach my kids a lot more about that than I could. And one thing I learned was that a lot of dads have been told this myth and this lie that we need to be the hero to our kids. And it's that cool thing. I wear the t-shirt, right? I'm the hero. And that sounds really good in principle, but it's bad in practice and
Sure.
doesn't translate. And what I found is that if you make your kids the hero of their own story and you serve as their guide by helping them experience success and failure on their own and guiding them through that process, then one, they learn failure at a young age, which is really important. Learn how to deal with it and overcome it. Because guess what? Failure at 8 is way different than failure at 28 or 38, right? Failure at 8 is inconsequential most of the time. Failure at 28 or 38 can be catastrophic, especially when you don't know how to deal with that failure. Additionally, when you lower your pride and your ego and you position yourself as the guide, you allow other great guides into your kid's life who can teach your kids things that you can't teach or give them experiences that you couldn't give them on your own. Like, I'm not the handiest guy in the world. I'm not the best cook in the world. I know nothing about farming for the most part. I am not a good deep sea fisherman. My kids, when we lived in Charleston, they wanted to go deep sea fishing. And I knew a lot about fishing on lakes and streams. I grew up in Ohio. We don't have oceans in Ohio. If I had taken my kids out, we would have been shipwrecked somewhere and not caught any fish. So I had a fishing guide, literally, one of my mentors and one of my board members who's been deep sea fishing for 20 years. He took us out. We had an insane experience. My kids will talk about it the rest of their life. He loved doing it. It also gave me a chance to zoom out and kind of observe my kids. We talked about, right, the different personalities of our kids. A great way to learn your kids' personalities is by stepping back and zooming out so you can actually just watch them in the moment, and you'll pick up so much. And the final piece of that is when you position yourself as the guide early enough in life, when your kids get older and they need a guide, not a hero, then you position yourself in that capacity, and they will then come to you for those types of things. And guess what the irony of all this is? If you do all of that, you are your kid's hero. And you are, and you always will be, but
Yes.
you actualize it when you position yourself as the guide.
Beautiful. I love that, man. Yes. I mean, you in essence, you're sparking curiosity out of them, right? Because if you come across as the person that knows everything, then they soon look to you for everything. But really, the world is a truth-seeking journey for everybody. And so, I mean, I like to think that when I think of my two kids, like Kellen, our oldest, is a very creative mind where he loves to invent things, make things, craft things. And then our 5-year-old is more of the athlete. Like, he just loves being nature's outdoors running. And I kind of just sit back and watch. I just sit back and watch them and then engage in them how they want to be engaged, and then have them seek that curiosity, you know, instead of planting that in front of them. And so I love that. I love that concept. So
can I ask just a real quick question? Justin, thank you for, like being, a man without kids, this really gets me excited to potentially, start a family of my own, and having, someone like yourself and Troy as amazing role models in this. So just thank you for all the work that you're doing, and the father that you are, the man that you are. I'm kind of curious, like, what are some of the, like, I don't know, insights, practices that you have, or routines that you implement on a daily basis or weekly basis that helps you become the man and the father that you are?
Great question. And I believe that in raising kids, far more is caught than taught, right? And so it's really important that we set the example. We be the role model for our kids. And so we have to take care of ourselves first if we're going to take care of kids. And Troy knows this with 4 kids, right? You get divided 4 different ways at all times. So if you're not taking care of yourself, then things break down very quickly, or focusing on your marriage first. So I think one of the things that I've found is that I take care of myself first thing in the day. So I wake up around 5:15, 5:30 in the morning. Kids don't wake up until 6:15. So I've got a solid 45 minutes to an hour by myself where I do a devotional. I read the Bible. I pray. I connect with the Lord first thing. I then go work out. I'll get a 30, 45-minute workout in as well. And those 2 things are kind of like my time. And then the kids are waking up. I take my wife for coffee. Kids come in. I make them breakfast. Nick, again, probably not anything near as skilled as I need some recipes and some training, but we'll do bacon and eggs and pancakes, and We get them going, some waffles, and we have an awesome, healthy breakfast. I drink a breakfast smoothie every day, so I'm very focused on my health and my nutrition. So by exercising, by reading my Bible, by doing the devotionals, right? Those are all things that are keystone habits. So those small habits impact the rest of my day. And my smoothies is another part of that. I'm very routine. And, my family makes fun of me all the time because they're like, oh, there's dad's blender. There's dad's making a smoothie. And they just get used to that. I also do juicing. So I like celery juice and cucumber juice. I'll do beet juice before I work out.
Yes.
So those are all things that are really core and centric to me at the beginning of my day. Because I found that if I'm not centered, if I'm not grounding myself, then I'm not at my best the rest of the day. The second part of that is if I don't do it in the morning before they wake up, it's not going to get done. Because when I get home after work or after school time, right, it's all about them and engaging with my family or activities that we have going on. So that's a big part of that pacing. I think the other thing that I found that's very beneficial for couples, and again, it's connecting with your wife, because by the time I've taken care of myself in the morning, and then I've got the kids off to school, worked all day, come home, done dinner, done activities, and then it's like, okay, kids are in bed, now you're exhausted, and I'm giving my wife the breadcrumbs of what's left of me. That doesn't necessarily work either. So that principle of intentionality, Nick, is really key for me. So I plan a lot in my business life that's also blended with my personal life. So taking my wife on a lunch date, right, where we can connect and be fresh and not have to get a babysitter to go out. Spending time with my kids and their calendar. So they may have a baseball game at 5:30. I know that I have to leave work early to be there on time and to be fully engaged and present while I'm there, not have my phone, not trying to finish up emails from work. So I blend my calendar, and I really make sure that my personal calendar is on my professional calendar, and I treat every single appointment that's personal just like it's a professional meeting. And the last thing I would say is that I make every moment as intentional as I can possibly make it. We do things like theme nights. So Monday nights are karaoke night. We got a karaoke machine. After dinner, we'll get into the karaoke. Wednesday nights is often family game night. So we'll break out the board games. We're playing a game right now with our older kids called Cash Flow by Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. Amazing game. Like, they're learning life principles about passive income, and they're 13 and 11 years old, like crazy stuff like that. So we just, we're very routine. I'm very intentional about myself, my health, my spirituality, and then, my marriage and my kids as well.
That's beautiful. Wow. Thank you for opening up, Justin, and sharing a little bit more about your daily routines there. And I think that what you just shared would be really helpful for many men and fathers out there. Is just like, try to take care of yourself, also take care of your relationship. And once those two things are in place, like, it frees you up to go and be like the father that you are. So just thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. And Nick, I would also add something too, because I'm in great shape. I do Spartan races. I train to be I'm not a professional athlete by any means, but I'm more than a weekend warrior. And, I've worked out for 20 plus years, and I've never missed more than 2 weeks. It's only because of injury. So people are like, how are you in such great shape? And I say, I've worked out literally every day for 20 years, right? Like, that's how I got to this point. And the principle of that is, don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle. John Acuff's an author here in Nashville, and that's his line. So I'll give him the credit for it. But it's an awesome line because, don't compare yourself to someone else and where they're at when you don't know where they are or how they got there, right? It always looks like the easy button along the way. There was a ton of hard work that got them there. Even in my parenting, right? Like, I still have so far to go as a dad. I mess up all the time, but I've spent so many hours just being intentional and engaging my kids that I've worked out a lot of the things that were wrong with me or wrong with my philosophy or role in parenting, that I've worked those kinks out. Now I can share that with others. So just also recognize that, like, I talk about my routine, that may not work for everybody, right? Getting up at 5 or 5:15 may not work for people, but could you get up 15 minutes earlier the entire week next week and move that back 15 minutes? And in that 15 minutes, what could you do, right, to center yourself and ground yourself? Can you go back 15 minutes more the next week, right? And eventually you get to the point where you're waking up when you want to wake up. You never felt it because you move back at 15 minutes at a time, which is completely, really irrelevant in terms of an overall night's sleep or sleep cycle. Working out, Nick, same thing, right? Somebody may be just starting that journey. it's move your body for 15 minutes every day and do that for 2 weeks, and then keep increasing that and elevating that till you get to the point where now you're working out the way you want to. So for me, the principles that I would share are do what works for you. Just do it with consistency. Consistency is today's superpower that no one ever talks about.
Yes. Yes.
Amen.
Yes, I love it. What was awesome in there that I love too, Justin, was that I think what you shared, especially for Nick as an aspiring father or any aspiring father out there that's going to listen to this, is that the taking care of yourself, because that is something that I had to learn the hard way. And it wasn't that I didn't work out and take care of my body. I've always been a fitness person. But then it was like, how do I manage my day, providing good attention to everybody, my wife, my kids? And I started to get stressed, right? I started to get stressed about business. I too worked in corporate while I was trying to build a side hustle, and so all these things are always on my mind. When to shut them off, right? When to realize that sleep is more important than staying up till 11 o'clock midnight trying to get work done. And I still struggle at those things on a daily basis. And so I see that advice as being crucial, not only for myself, but for somebody like Nick, that, building in something today will really help him do through that as a dad.
Well, and I would say to both of you and to the audience listening, I've found that the word balance is a myth. And I believe in work-life tension, and that tension is always going to exist. So you may as well acknowledge it's going to be there.
Yes.
And it's all about managing that tension, right? And so, Troy, you may be busy at work, and you may have that period of time where you do have to stay up late for a week or a period of time because you have a big project, or you're working on something that's really important, or you're launching a new business. And that's okay. You're going to have those moments. But the point is, you can't let the tension go so far that eventually you start to sacrifice things at home, right? Your marriage, your time with your kids, etc. So
Yes.
for a short period of time, it's like a yo-yo or a teeter-totter. You're going back and forth along that pendulum. But as long as you maintain the tension in the right way, then that's how you're going to succeed. And I believe that, again, that's by taking the best in business and bringing it into the home, and instead of bringing the worst in business into the home, which is what we often do. So mission, vision, values, goal setting, right? All those things are so valuable to bring into the home, and creating that painted picture of what we want our life to be for our family, not just for our business, and laying out those steps. And when you do that, it creates a true north. It creates a compass. So when you get out of alignment, it's so much easier to bring it back when you know what you're driving towards and the direction you're heading in as a family.
Excellent. Do you have any tips? So I find myself in these positions sometimes where something happens at work and my mind's fixated on it, right? Do you have like these practices that you do that kind of snap you back from what is work and what is not? Because I know you mentioned, and this is how I lead my life too, because I love this mindset, which is when work is done, then it's all family, right? It's all kids, coaching kids, being there, being with family. And so do you have any practices for that transition? Like if you've had a day where things are kind of on your mind, whether it's a speaking engagement or anything with a client or anything, and it starts getting your mind going, what do you do to kind of snap back into that true north that you're talking about?
Well, so I'll be really open and transparent with you guys, and this has been a journey for me, because I 3.5 years ago now, I quit drinking, and I found that I was using alcohol. I didn't have a problem, but it was so easy to have a glass of wine or two at night when I was cooking dinner, or my drink was Tito's and soda with an orange slice, and so it was like drinking water. And we lived in Charleston, South Carolina, where you drive around golf carts everywhere, and you're by that water, and it's like, hey, come over and have a cocktail. Hey, come over and do this or do that. And I found myself saying yes far more than I was saying no. And I also looked at it and I was like, what's the real reason, right? What's my motive for having a glass of wine or two or having a cocktail in the evenings? And it was because I was using that as a de-stressor. So instead of dealing with the problem or the issue, I was essentially self-medicating. And so I'm very rigid and disciplined the way that I work. So I just cut it off and I stopped cold turkey. My trick for that, if anyone wants to do that or has a desire to go down that road, was I drank Tito's and soda with an orange slice. So I drank soda with an orange slice and just took out the Tito's. Still had it in my hand, still tastes the same. And, that was my way of changing the behavior and getting through that. So that's one thing real transparently is I looked at what I was doing to deal with the issues. And I made sure that I was actually doing something that would actually solve the problem. Right. So like taking it to the Lord in prayer would be a great thing, or just meditating. If I was at work coming home, I would park in my driveway and I would just literally meditate or just pause for a minute, or knowing my kids would see me sometimes, I would just like stop at the street and pull over before I came down our road. And it would just take a minute to gather myself. And I would envision not what I expected it to look like when I walked in the house, but what I wanted it to look like. In particular, my response to whatever was going on in the house, even though a lot of times it was like a tornado that was exploding. And when I did that, I could walk in and I had decompressed, right? I had turned off whatever was going on at work, and I could walk in and respond instead of reacting to what happened in the house. And Lord knows I had made plenty of mistakes of just walking in and then blowing up. And I would take my circumstances, my environment out on my family instead of dealing with those things and walking in and recognizing that they're two disparate things. The other thing I would say is recently I had to deal with this in a whole new way because I found myself, like everyone else did with COVID, working from home. And so when you could travel or go away or go to an office and then come back, there was kind of that switch because there was a separation between work and home physically, right? You leave the office. Well, now your office is your bedroom or a home office. And it's like you walk out the door and there's your family. So I totally let the off switch get way away from me. And my wife was like, you've got to get this under control because like you're in business mode all the time. And I'm very intense and like very, my velocity, it runs really high when I'm in my work day. And so like I had a really hard time going from one to the next. Yes. And I had to learn some mechanisms for when I was in the house. How do you do that, right? And it was kind of the same thing. I would just make sure that I allowed interruptions and the interruptions didn't bother me. Made my kids, if they walked in the room and I was in a Zoom call, I made them join the Zoom call and they had to introduce themselves and add something of value, which that happened like once or twice. They never came in again during a Zoom call. So they learned their lesson. And then, I would just do the same thing. I would decompress for a minute before I walked out. And I would set those points where I would intentionally say, okay, how long till dinner's ready, or when do I need to come out and make dinner? And then I would shut down my day and just kind of make the point to say, okay, day in review, did it. Here's what's coming up tomorrow. Done. Shut the door and move on. And now it's family time.
Excellent. Yeah, I could imagine that switch over from COVID being a hot topic for many people. Well, I'm in my office room technically right now, which is just an open door away from my boys' bedrooms, right? So yep. It can be very difficult to shut that off. But no, that's excellent advice. And like you said, it's not something that we choose to do when we walk into those atmospheres. It's not like we want to snap or project our stress onto somebody else. It's just, it happens in the moment when we can't collect ourselves. And I love that you shared that as an example.
Well, and Troy, listen, I'm not perfect either. It still happens, right? Yes. I'm in trying to teach it and grow from it. And yet I'm still the one that comes in the house and still makes a mistake. And so it's going to happen. The other thing I would say is it offers you an amazing chance to show your kids the act of apologizing and seeking forgiveness and saying you're sorry and understanding the situational awareness. And like that principle in and of itself is worth gold. So we're going to make mistakes as dads. I think that's one of the things that we all need to give ourselves the grace and the freedom to do, is that we're going to make mistakes, but how you own that mistake, how you take accountability and responsibility for it, how you set your kids down and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I had a really rough day today, or I'm super stressed about this certain thing. Let me share this with you. I want you to know that it wasn't you. It was me. That was my fault. I should not have reacted or responded that way. And I'm sorry. Can you forgive me? And they're like, of course. I didn't even know, like, whatever, it was fine. But the act of doing that is so powerful for your kids. So, you know what, Troy, we're never going to be perfect, but it gives us a great chance as dads to humble ourselves and show our humility and make sure that we're teaching our kids the act of forgiveness and saying you're sorry and meaning it.
Yeah, I mean, there have been times where I go to bed at night and I start to reflect on something I said or did with the kids, and I start to beat myself over it, up over it. And my wife says, you got tomorrow morning to recover, right? You got tomorrow morning to sit down and talk it through. And so that's important to remember, right? It's never said, and it's never just done in that moment. You always have a chance to turn around and make things right. So,
and Troy, I've got gold for you, and I've got gold for all the listeners that have kids. Okay. So
yeah.
One thing you can do at the end of the day, I learned this from Andy Andrews, author Andy Andrews, is when I put my kids to bed, I tell them bedtime stories every night. The boys, my daughter, she's 13. She's like, Dad, I don't need the bedtime stories. So I tell her I love her. But we say something to all the kids before they go to bed. And it's, do you need to forgive anyone? Does anyone need to forgive you? Anything you want to tell me? Anything you want to tell God? And then I say anything you want to tell each other. And then they all say, I love you or whatever to each other. And what that does is it opens up that opportunity. So if I found myself, if I made that mistake, then I can ask them, is there anyone that you need to forgive? And anyone that needs to forgive you. So when I do that, I can often say, they're like, no. They almost always say no. And I'm like, what about me? Right? I made that mistake. And right there is that chance to offer that forgiveness. And now I can go to bed with peace of mind. And it's teaching them the great principle that, like, look, you shouldn't end your day with bitterness and resentment and being upset at someone. And most of the time they're forgiving each other. And so it becomes a game of, well, he hit me and I hit him back and I need to forgive him for that. I need to forgive him for that. So it's kind of funny. But, they've understood that principle. And that's one thing that's helped me a lot. Because I used to do the same thing, Troy. I would beat myself up at night and just be like, I cannot believe I did that. And now I got to wait until tomorrow to try and make this thing right. And it's just eating me alive when they're sleeping in their beds like babies. They have no clue that it even happened. They wake up the next day and they're so resilient and they even forget that it happened in the first place. But that one tool of that saying at night, and make it your own, but that'll give you a way to gain that closure.
That is such an easier or more simplistic approach than anything I've ever tried. I mean, I've tried a life check chart where I built like this chart of principles that I wanted to lead by, and like 2 areas were husband and father. And so at the end of every night, I would go through the chart with my wife.
Yep.
And I would say, was there anything that I could have done better today as a father? And then, is there anything I could have done better as a husband? And we talked through it. And there's obviously a couple other areas on there, like personal health and things like that. But I love the simple approach of just asking the question, because I think it's a lot easier to stick to that routine than it is to stick to a life chart every day.
Yeah, I tried the life chart thing too, and it didn't work for me. So maybe the analytical listeners that are better at those types of things would get into that. It didn't work for me.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. It's not only me then.
Yes.
Love it. Well, excellent. So throughout our talk tonight too, I've been chatting in. So I chatted in Justin's website. I've chatted in Daddy Saturday's website, and Justin mentioned that I think that a new site is coming up soon here with some enhancements. I've also chatted in a link to Justin's book, Daddy Saturdays, on Amazon. If you want to check that out, I've also provided that as well. Justin, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners tonight around fatherhood or anything in general that can help them in their lives?
Well, I think in closing comments, I would just say that the principle of intentionality is so paramount, and the more that you can plan and prepare yourself for making an investment in your family and in your kids, the more fruit you're going to see and the bigger the return. And what I mean by that is, I recently interviewed a CEO, and I've interviewed a lot of CEOs on my podcast and just in conversations, and been around many of them. And when we get on the conversation of fatherhood or parenting, and they hear what I do, it always brings up some interesting stories and conversations. And one recently, the CEO said, Justin, I've started and sold 4 companies. I'm an angel investor. I know business inside and out. I've read almost every business book there is. And he said, I've never read a single book on parenting. And he said, I'm ashamed at that fact. And I said, well, I'm going to send you Daddy Saturday. That could be your first book you ever read. It's not the best, but there's many others out there. But the point was, he had a huge wake up call to say, I've been so intentional on being better at business, but I've not been intentional on being the best dad that I could be or the best husband that I could be. And I've made all these investments in my career, but I haven't made the investments that I need to be making at home. and he took a pivot, and he made that pivot. And thankfully, his kids are younger, and it's early enough that I know he's going to be an amazing father. He's already a great dad, but now he's going to make that investment. It's only going to take him to the next level. So that's one thing I would leave with. The second one is fatherhood is not meant to be done in isolation. So find community, whether that's in our community, whether that's in your local community, what's in your church. Find community where you can do life with other dads and other dads that are like you and can empathize with you. I mean, you've heard Troy and I connect around several things that we're alike. If we lived next to each other, we'd probably hang out, Troy, and we'd have almost a baseball team between the two of us. And it would be an amazing time. But you need to have that community. Stop trying to do fatherhood in isolation. Get out there. It's so much easier when you do it in community. And in order to do that, you got to drop your ego. You got to drop your pride and allow other men to come into your kids' lives and support them and help them grow. And you do the same for other dads' kids where you have expertise. And if you do those things, if you're intentional, you do life in community with other dads, man, this whole thing of being a father and being a parent can be so much easier and so much more fun.
I mean, I'm grateful every day that the neighborhood dads let me throw balls to the kids in the backyard. I mean, I swear I got the entire neighborhood at our house every night, but I'm grateful for those moments. So, well, thank you so much, Justin, for all the insights you've shared. Just to recap a little bit, Justin did share that you could get involved and build a Daddy Saturday community where you live. And so there's more information coming on that. Continue to follow Justin. I will provide his connections on social media as well, so you can connect with him. But follow his movement, check out his book. And then if you're interested in starting that community where you're at, please look into that. I know that I'm going to look into that because it sounds awesome. And thank you so much for joining us tonight, Justin. We always invite our guests to stick around to watch what Nick's whipping up in the kitchen here, especially if you have any insights, questions, or anything. It's a fun environment just cooking with Nick. But thank you so much for being on the show tonight.
You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. Nick, I'm going to get some food tips from you. And Troy, I will take you up on that farming expertise. So look out. I'm going to reach out about that. And I will absolutely stick around. But I'm going to put myself on mute for part of it because I'm going to go tuck those kids into bed and make sure I do the bedtime routine. I can't say it and then not go do it, brother.
Absolutely. Yes. No, at 100%. I love the integrity. And Justin, just before you go, I really, really admire and respect the work that you're doing out there in the world. And just, you have a beautiful heart and a beautiful soul, brother. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm going to probably be down in Nashville myself here in the near future. So I would love to stay connected and potentially link up with you. Come take a look at all of your black and white farm.
That'd be awesome.
So, well, thank you, brother. All right. We are back in the kitchen with me. Thank you, Troy. Thank you, Justin. And as I said, as an inspiration of this show, of this specific episode, I would like to welcome everybody to this segment known from here thereafter as Dad's Breakfast Club. So what we're going to do is we're going to create healthy breakfast options for you to cook for your kids, maybe on Saturday mornings to help jumpstart that experience. And we're keeping it really close to my heart, my home, my family. And we're going to whip up what I call the Wolf Avocado Fancy Breakfast Toast.
All right.
So there's a little bit of a story behind this. I will just go into it real quick. But my grandma, may she rest in heaven above, she grew up in a farm in Nebraska. But her father also owned a avocado farm in San Diego. So she spent some time going there very young, maybe up until she was 5 or 6. But they would come back to Nebraska with all these things known as avocados, and they didn't really know what to do with them. So they cut them open and smashed them on toast. And I have a very illegitimate claim that my family invented avocado toast.
So, way to piece those together, Nick.
So we're talking Wyld Farm Family Fun Show. Okay, So here's all you're going to need. I got to grab one thing. So this can be done. You can make it as fancy as you want, or you can make it as basic as you want, based on what your kid's preference is. We're going to go with a meat option here. There's also leave the meat out for vegetarian, vegan purposes. But so essentially what you're going to need is only an artisan piece of toast. You're going to need an avocado, a little lime, some garlic, some sauteed spinach, which I already took care of, and you're going to need an egg. So to start things off, you're going to heat up your nonstick fry pan. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to pull out your artisan bread, get that ready to toast. Little quick tip on the avocado. So little known fact, I think it was in England, the most emergency room visits were because of what they call as avocado hand. So when you go and take the knife and you try to take that pit out, a lot of people misfire and they end up like hitting right there. So that's a true story. Never ever had an avocado hand. I hopefully never will, but little quick tip on the avocado, right? So I'm going to hold the avocado in my non-dominant hand. Then I'm going to pinch the bottom part of the blade. I'm going to take that avocado. I'm just going to tap and turn. Tap and twist.
Nice.
No avocado hand there. So if you're going to also, real quick, if you're going to only use half the avocado, just keep that pit in there. Put it in an airtight container so it doesn't brown. That avocado seed keeps it from browning up. So my pan looks hot. I'm going to start the toast. I should have started that sooner. But again, so the ingredients that you're going to need, we're going to make this fancy just because we can. But I did some sauteed spinach, so you could have that on hand. I'm going to use some Serrano loin, which is like Spanish cured pork loin. You could also use Serrano, or you could use bacon, whatever you would prefer, but you could just have like a base of protein on the bottom. The next thing I'm going to want to do is get my egg ready. So a little oil in the bottom of the pan. And then you also need your little clove of garlic. I'm going to show you a quick little tip to make that garlic toast go, or that avocado toast really, really flavorful.
Well, Nick, are you using olive oil back there? What oil are you using?
I'm using I like to fry my eggs in ghee.
Oh, nice. So clarified butter?
Yeah, a little clarified butter. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So, all right, we're waiting for the toast to get done. Why don't we go ahead and get the egg rocking and rolling?
Well, Nick, while you're doing that, I saw something the other day. I haven't done this yet, but I'm thinking about doing this with avocados, where you put you squirt a little bit of lime juice on your avocado, and it keeps it from browning.
That would be correct. Yeah, the acid in there. Yep, that would help. 100%. We're actually going to squirt a little lime juice on ours here too, Troy. So
all right,
we're in good shape. You also might want I'm going to throw a little red pepper flakes, and I've got some black truffle salt I'm going to finish this with. So that's why it's really extra fancy. Again, you don't need to go that fancy. I don't know if your kids like truffles. They probably don't like spinach, but you can do the best that you can. So.
Oh yeah, a little farming thing too. While you're still doing that with the egg back there, truffles. Interesting enough. So you don't know anything about truffles, but truffles grow underground, and they used to actually you buy a certain type of pig to seek out your truffles on your land if you have it, because pigs, the scent that truffles give off is actually the same scent that pigs have when they're looking to mate. And so if you find a certain type of pig, you can actually hunt truffles in your property if you believe that they're growing underground, because you can't see truffles actually. So.
Yeah, that's a great fact.
Yeah.
It might even repulse people from like, oh my God, truffles are found by pigs. This is terrible. But yes, that's really funny.
You can also use dogs too, but I just wanted to share like the most interesting way that farmers of truffles actually find them. So.
All right, so I've got my egg done. My toast is good. So once the toast is done, I'm going to take that garlic clove and I'm going to rub the top. Sort of and it's going to sort of melt onto the toast. It might be a little bitter, aromatic, definitely coming out. I'm going to then scoop out the avocado with a spoon. Whoop, missed a piece. And then I'll take a fork to mash it down. So it's a very quick, it's a very quick meal. A lot of good healthy fats, obviously, with the avocado. You could also obviously use gluten-free toast. You could even sans the toast. You could put a couple tortillas down. Whatever floats your boat. So I'm going to also then take the next step would be, I'm going to do the lime first because I can help that. Okay, then I'm going to go layer on the serrano loin. Then I'm going to do the spinach on top. You should tell your kids that Popeye eats spinach if they know who Popeye is, and look at his muscles.
Taste testers that are watching, and they're all in on it.
They are fantastic. All right, so I'm going to transfer this to a plate. Then I'm going to take my egg, put that on top, and then from there, all I'm going to do is I could add some of these red pepper flakes. And then take that black truffle salt that the pig found and hold that up top. Whenever you distribute salt, you want to hold it up top so you get a nice even distribution. And if you've got it in your cards, I always like to keep put that sauce on everything, and I'll garlic, lemon aioli.
Ooh.
And there you go.
Oh,
and
man.
It would probably be about $20. So I probably did that. I don't know. That's probably $3 right there.
That's awesome, man. That is so good.
There you have it. So you have the Wolf Avocado Fancy Breakfast Toast. It is going to be the very first meal that will be on the new segment of the Wyld Family Farm Show of Dad's Breakfast Corner, where we're going to provide recipes and culinary inspiration for you to cook for your kids on Saturdays or any day of the week now. But yes, as an inspiration to Justin and all the fine work that he's doing in the world. And you too, Troy. I really look up to you as a friend, a brother, and a just a guy doing some awesome things as a father and in business. So thank you both, and I hope this meal not only tastes good for you, but it makes you the hero of the morning. So
thanks, buddy. That's awesomeness. And I love the kind words, man. I love you too, brother. So with this program that you've mentioned, so is this something we could maybe connect with Justin on to help out with the Daddy Saturday Foundation program?
I would absolutely love to connect with Justin on that, if that would be something of his interest, and of anything that we can do to help provide, healthy, nourishing meals that really connect fathers to their kids. Really, like for me, the kitchen is this moment right here. What this can give you is an experience, not just a meal. So,
yes, yeah, and I'm sure Justin could share some stories too, but I love cooking in the kitchen with my kids. So it's actually a lot of fun. Not only do they help you and you don't have to do everything, but they tend to eat the food they make, right? Where they don't give you the hard time about it. And so that's always a win-win. Hey, you made that, so you better eat it.
Yes, curiosity, yes, is the number one weapon in getting your kids to try healthy foods.
Yes. Awesome. Yeah, I had a buddy the other day, we were talking about smoothies, and he's like, I just throw as many copious vegetables and fruits as possible in that smoothie and give it to him. As long as it tastes good, I keep my fingers crossed. He got some good stuff in there. So I was like, wow, that's a good strategy, man. So yes. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nick, for your fun in the kitchen. I really enjoyed that. I'm actually going to try that this week. I don't know about the pork, but I am curious about the truffle salt, though. I've never actually used truffle salt, and I think that would be amazing.
Thank you, Troy. Well, thank you, Justin, again for being on the show tonight. And everyone, you can find us on all streaming platforms. You can find us on YouTube and podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, all the above. So this is definitely a great episode to listen into if you're a father out there. And again, just many thanks, many blessings, and have a wonderful, wonderful week, everyone.
Yes. And so just to close this out, again, this show is all about farm, family, food, and most importantly, we have a lot of fun on this show, not only through our awesome guests, but also Nick's amazing and awesomeness in the kitchen. And so thank you to all our supporters out there. For those that do watch us live, we are truly grateful for you, as well as everyone else that watches later or checks us out even on podcasts by just listening in. So thank you so much for our supporters. We hope you go back and check the show out, and we will be chatting in more of the links and connections for how you can connect with Justin and the recipe from tonight's episode with Chef Nick. So we will see you next week.
Adios.